quietly ratchet up, though, the vetting?
The secondary vetting?
Yeah.
Well, technically, I suppose they could, but if they got caught, they would be acting in an unconstitutional way and subject to lawsuits.
So, as we said, Customs and Border Protection says they are going to comply with all court orders. This, of course, is now the court order that is the law of the land constitutionally. Let's go to Renee Marsh. Renee, we're trying to get an understanding of what is about to happen at this nation's airports. What can you tell us?
Well, I can tell you, Aaron, there are not a lot of people who have answers at this point. Customs and Border Protection, which is essentially tasked with enforcing this, they themselves, we just got off the phone with them, and they're trying to figure this all out. They have not received the text of this judge's ruling, so they haven't had a chance to review it, digest it, and figure out how they react to it. So that's the space that we're in now. However, a spokesperson did tell me that, you know, they, from the very beginning, said that they would comply with any court order. So that is that. As far as the confusion that this now creates, it just creates another layer here. I mean, we saw the confusion when this ban was first put into place with the airlines, and now you have this ruling, and many people involved, whether it's the people who will need to enforce it and the airlines who, to a certain extent, would need to enforce it as well, are kind of sitting there, and they're not quite sure what to do and how this all pans out. Does this mean that airlines will now go back to, as you all were just talking about, the way things were before, or do they continue to do what this travel ban said that it should do? It is unclear. I guess the answer here for you, Aaron, is no one knows.
Yeah, no one knows,
next.
right? And now it's a sort of, will it be a frenzied 2 or 3 days? Will the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals be able to move more quickly than that? The Solicitor General of Washington, of course, Washington State, where this ruling just came down from Federal District Court, is speaking out, and here's what he's saying.
Is the executive order in its entirety block? And the technical answer to that is no. We only challenged the parts that are actually sort of affecting people immediately, which are the parts about refugees and the parts about targeting these 7 countries for not being allowed to enter the country. So technically we were challenging parts 3 and part 5 of the order. A lot of the other parts are things like a policy statement, long-term directives to the Department of Homeland Security that do not have any immediate impact and that sort of thing. So we were not challenging those right away. But the parts that have been getting so much attention and have been causing such immediate harm to people, stranding them overseas and such, are enjoined right away.
So, Paul, when we hear that, obviously, when he's saying challenging parts of it, I just want to be clear. These are the parts that everybody has been talking about so much. This is refugees and the 7 countries.
Right. These are the parts about getting, keeping people, Muslims in particular, out of the United States. The rest of the order, there are lots of things in the order involving gathering statistics so that we can study safety in terms of the screening process and other things.
Any of that.
No, they're not touching that. This is only directly relevant to people getting into the country.
All right, so Jeff Toobin, I believe I still have you, and I want to just ask you what you think the significance of this moment is. I know you said that Barack Obama had been dealt a similar blow by a federal district court, but this is a moment in history, in a sense, that this is happening at this point, at this moment.
Absolutely. This is an epic confrontation between the court system and the executive branch. I mean, we have 3 branches of government. They are often in conflict, but rarely on such a dramatic and immediate way as right now. I think it's important to emphasize that this is one important act in a but it is going to be a long drama, and there will be many judges involved, and there will be many courts involved, and so I think all we can say is stay tuned as everyone tries to figure out what this means, especially for the people who are online at airports in a very practical sense.
So let me try to get a bottom line of where we are, and I want all of our viewers to understand here, now a federal judge halting the Trump travel ban nationwide, constitutionally allowed to do so. Customs and Border Control say they will comply with court orders. We have not yet heard from the Trump administration, silent right now as they're figuring out what their response will be. What is the timeline, Paul, that we're talking about here? They're going to come out and slam it. It's going to go to a court of appeals. I mean, is this something that gets resolved tonight, or is this something as you
It could get resolved tonight. It could, the circuit court could assign a judge to look at it and decide whether a stay should be issued, whether we should, step back and decide it more slowly. And the other thing you have to emphasize is we're not at a constitutional crisis situation yet, because Customs and Border have said we're going to follow the judge's order. And as long as the judge's order is followed,
so they're now following the
there's not
judge's order, they say, and not the president.
Well, but that's how our system works. Federal judges rule on constitutionality, and presidents traditionally abide by what they say. Until the administration says we are going to ignore that order, we don't have a constitutional crisis.
We will see what the president says. We are awaiting that as we await a response from the White House here. We'll be back in a moment with more on our breaking news.
Every day we do stories about people in need. With CNN's Impact Your World,